Hello and welcome. Today I have with me Geetansh Bamania, founder of Rentomojo. Geetansh, thank you very much for joining us on Republic Business.
Thank you, Pranav. Great to speak with you. Thanks for having me.
It's fantastic. Geetansh, just to get started, why Rentomojo? How did Rentomojo, the name Rentomojo,
how Rentomojo came into existence, or how Rentomojo happened?
No, how Rentomojo, the name, came into existence.
So I think there were a couple of companies back then where I was working prior to starting Rentomojo. I was in a small incubation setup, and I think I remembered Rentomojo or something like that. So I really caught up with the word mojo, but being a half Marwadi, I think when I was looking out for names which can be synonymous with rental, I think I got Rentomojo, and it was rentomojo.com was available at a good price. So I think being a Marwadi, I thought let's go for a better price. So that's pretty much about it.
Talking about starting up, I want to understand from you, what was your thought behind starting a business that completely runs around renting?
No, absolutely. So, a lot of what entrepreneur starts, comes back or is a derivation of their own journey. Somewhere I'm a byproduct of urbanization. So I come from a very small town in Bhilai. My parents, I'm somebody who grew up in 90s. My father was somebody who was, one out of maybe a span of 40 people who came out and, started working in a more organized setup. So he retired in, sale as a general manager. My mother was a doctor. He also stayed in one company for about 30-40 years. So, I was growing up at a time where our parents were pretty much looking out for stability, because that's the generation that was coming out of us kind of GDP per capita that, most of them were looking out for government jobs and, more stable opportunities, MNCs and all of that. Thankfully, because of them, because of their stability, I graduated out of IIT Madras. Post my graduation, I could take a little bit of risk. So I think I remember coming to Bangalore and, just to showcase my parents that I've stabilized in my life, I took about a 2 lakh loan just to furnish my apartment, where my salary was just about 30,000 rupees a month. So it was a massive thing for me to go for a 2 lakh kind of a loan altogether. But I remember within 6 months I wanted to start off, and that dawned me that I wish I could have used this 2 lakh rather to invest into my startup, or invest into anything that was appreciating in nature, not invest into furniture and appliances. That just from a perception perspective, I invested into something which was more depreciating in its nature, right? So that dawned to me at that point in time that, I wish I could have either invested that into, something like a startup of my own or something else. So slowly and gradually, over the years, I've realized that, in the last 8 to 9 years, I must have changed close to about 3 to 4 cities and roughly about 6 houses. And this is the kind of a mobility I was seeing all across. So more and more I went through my journey, I realized it doesn't make sense, moving from one place to the other with a burden of furniture and appliances over your head. Spend in terms of repair and maintenance, whenever something is broken down or it needs a upkeep or a repair and maintenance, you have to actually spend your time, investment and energy there. So all of that I felt is just unnecessary for a more mobile kind of a population, which is kind of what what our generation is going through right now. Yeah.
So how did you start up? From having this idea that this is something that I want to do.
Yeah.
So now I want to start this company. I want to build it into a business. How did that start?
When I was staying in my own rental apartment, I had rented products from a small manufacturer somewhere, and I was paying about roughly about 1,000 rupees a month for it. I remember the cost, the purchase value of those products in the market was about at least 35 to 40,000. So I thought it's great. I'm paying about 1,000 rupees for something which will take me at least 35 months to come closer to. But at the same time, what I realized was when I called upon that small manufacturer, when he came to our house for collecting rentals every month, I was chit-chatting and understanding the business model a little bit. And what I realized from him was that he has not only generated rental from me, but he has generated rentals on the same products that he has deployed in that house from the tenants previous to me as well. So I was the third or the fourth tenant who was generating rentals on the same investment that he has had, potentially a couple of years back. So that made me realize that this is almost an opportunity for me to change the business model altogether. So far, the commerce has been about, making a gross margin. If you have 100 rupees, you make a 30-40% gross margin on it. And, from there, your cash flows or the P&L flows through, right?
Correct.
There's almost looking at that business model in a different way. You spend $100, but over the years, what sort of a return you can generate on it? Through multiple investments, by keeping your assets deployed, which is very similar to, let's say how I don't know, maybe a co-working setup or maybe an airline would look at it, right?
Right.
A co-working
You've
setup.
invested in something and now you're just reaping benefits out of it.
Reaping returns on that by keeping the occupancy of those seats, beds, or anything that they're managing fairly high. Like Indigo would be managing a bunch of seats every day, and they ensure that most of their seats are occupied when a plane is moving from one place to the other. Similarly, a co-working setup, if they're managing about 1 lakh seats, they ensure that every other day they have enough businesses that they are occupying those seats. So it becomes a very similar business. We also manage close to about 6 lakh items today.
That's something that I want to come to. I mean, what the benefit that you're passing on to the customer is that he is going to be liability. Less on liabilities. But it's a heavily capital-intensive business. Where did the capital for you come from initially?
So capital. I mean, I would say where capital, the capex is involved in our business, just like how a co-working or a hospitality industry. The capex intensive nature is very, even Lemon Tree would have to spend that kind of a capex. Even a office would have to spend that kind of a capex. That capex can either come in the form of equity or it can come in the form of debt.
But then
either of them.
But then when you actually entered the market, there were not many players. I mean, today we have a Fulenco, for example.
Yeah.
How was it to go out and convince VCs or people with money that for your capital that I'm starting something like this and I need funds?
No, in fact, you have touched upon something very crucial because back in the early days, it was super difficult to convince somebody that I'm coming. I want to raise a couple of crores for which I'll use it to purchase a bunch of chairs and sofas, and I will be able to keep it deployed over a useful life of the product and generate enough to pay you back.
Exactly.
This kind of an asset class didn't even exist back then.
So how did you deal with that?
I think somewhere my journey in which, when I was in Delhi, I was also in a crowdfunding setup. So I was reaching out to a bunch of HNIs, taking capital from there and, using those proceeds for donating into charities of their cause. So I had this crowdfunding kind of a model that was running in my head. And fortunately, I was able to reach out to the similar networks, my family network, and I was able to reach out to my uncles and mamas and chachas.
And what did you tell them?
I told them that
what was your pitch?
I'm generating decent revenue out of it. I'll be able to pass on that back to you. So they made some handsome returns back in the early days. No, but you were not
generating a revenue, right? You were just starting up at that time.
So I was generating revenue from day one. What was unsure was...
How was that? How did that day one start?
Let's say if I'm deploying, if I've deployed 1 crore worth of assets, there will be a certain fraction of revenue that I'll still be able to generate.
Where did that 1 crore come from?
From post renting it out to our consumers. I was only renting when there was a need, when there was a demand for furniture and appliances rental that was getting generated on the platforms that we have built at that point in time. That's when we used to go out and purchase products. So the demand was following the supply. So let's say if you wanted to take furniture and appliances on rental, and let's say there are hundreds of you like that, that's when I'll go back and get, let's say, 10 lakh worth of capital from somewhere and purchase products and give it to them on rental. So on day one, my demand is locked. I know that on
you're identifying demand first and then going and getting the product.
Then I used to go to and for us, supply was not just inventory; it was the capital, because inventory I could have just manufactured from somewhere. So that we used to go out and get that 10 lakh rupees in terms of the capital, and because we had a locked-in demand, we could at least tell them that don't worry, revenue is coming in from which we'll be able to pay you. What was uncertain was how long will you be able to pay me, because these loans were typically at least for 3-4 years. So that means you as an investor are potentially taking a call on Rentomojo that they will be able to deploy these assets consistently over a several-year period. Whenever somebody is returning the products back to them also, you'll still be able to find a new consumer. None of the consumers will beg the products. The product will also have a largest useful life in general. And hence, if all of these variables are met, that's when you'll be able to reap a benefit out of it. So I think that was the unknown aspect. The useful life was not known. whether people will damage the products was not known, whether we'll be able to keep a very high occupancy over a very longish period or not, that was unknown. So all of those are now known.
Was it some kind of a dive into an uncertain terrain?
Super uncertain. I mean, and hence we paid a large return on capital to them also back in the early days for them to be taking slightly higher risk. So we have had a great journey in terms of reducing our the kind of IRRs that we pay now. Over the years, it has drastically increased, and now we work with some of the bigger banks and NBFCs. Back then, it was possibly some high net worth individuals.
Or individuals.
Yeah.
Where did the inventory space come from initially? Because it also requires space to store those items when they're not being deployed.
See, this is a very complex business model. So
could you help us understand this entire model?
So as you rightly said, most of these products are kept in our warehouses. So in all our cities we have warehouses where most of these products are kept. Typical, unlike e-commerce, in which, let's say, a product leaves the warehouse and stays with the consumer altogether. Once you purchase a product, it'll come from the vendor to the warehouse and then to the consumer altogether. In this case, the product comes back, and you have to keep the product every time it comes back, repair, maintain it, upkeep it within our warehouses. So we have massive, we have one of the largest refurbishing unit in India today, and we operate massive warehouses. We have our logistics fleet of our own. So we have all the complexities of a large, sophisticated logistics infrastructure, a sophisticated warehouse modeling, a sophisticated refurbishing unit, and at the same time a large subscription management infrastructure. We manage close to about 2 lakh subscribers today. We have to reach out to them for collections every month. If somebody is not paying, take our assets back from them. So there's a recovery infrastructure. Then on top of that, all of these large item base and subscriber base can only be managed if you are a super highlight tech company. So this subscribers that we manage is managed through a proprietary ticketing management system at the back. The warehouses and the kind of inventory tracking ERP that we have, using that we are able to manage the occupancy of these assets and predict the inventory, that what kind of inventory will be needed, let's say in a greater Noida in a certain month altogether. We have last 10 years of understanding of what sort of fridges are needed in greater Noida in a certain pin code versus how many fridges are coming back, how long will it take within our warehouses, etc., etc. So all of this is purely, looks like an operation company at the front, but back end it's completely a tech and data driven company.
And then this transition and this learning happened over years?
Over many years, over 9-10 years now, yeah.
Okay. I have, before I go on to the other aspects of your business, there's one argument which I want to put across to you, and I want to see how you react to this. There's this whole argument that the IIT and IIM guys have it easy when it comes to starting up. Is it really a case?
No, I don't think so. In my journey, at least I didn't experience that at all. When we recruit, potentially I won't lie, there is a certain filtration of IIT, IIMs that we do apply at times when you're recruiting for more managerial positions. See, the thing is with colleges is it's more structured in nature. So whatever you learn every year on year, you literally learn something and go and give exams more on a structured process. Whereas entrepreneurship is not at all structured. Every year there are different kind of challenges. Whatever you have read in the books, you can just throw it out somewhere because you'll face a different challenge altogether. So past 9 years we have seen multiple challenges. I mean, COVID, it was a near-death situation, multiple challenges, and in those times you can't refer a certain book or a structured learning. But
then you
process.
have a network of IIT and IIM alumni. That alumni network, does it come to help?
That definitely helps, but that is true with any college. More so for IIT and IIMs and some of these colleges, because most of them turn out to be at good positions all across. So you definitely get to learn from and take help, take advice at the right time. But purely from a starting off perspective, I don't think the filtration of IIT IIM anecdotally has given out outsized returns. For starting off, it doesn't make sense. For managerial positions and for execution capabilities, it can be a great filter maybe.
Okay. Just last week, our Union Minister Piyush Goyal said that the billionaire kids are the ones who are starting up. Were you a billionaire kid? Is it only a billionaire kids club, Indian startup system?
No, not at all. I come from a very small middle class background. As I said, my father, retired as a general manager in a sale. So my father came from a village where most of his brothers did because of illness and all of that could not even survive. So I think he's coming from those kind of backgrounds, and we were also living in a very humble sort of a background back in Bhilai. So I don't think it's the case. In fact, with technology, a lot of people, what technology is giving an opportunity to the underserved communities, or potentially those entrepreneurship is somewhere increasing the GDP per capita, because a lot of people from this kind of a background are starting off and creating wealth for their families. So it's uplifting a lot of families altogether. I don't think it's about and I'm part of a couple of cohorts in which these new age entrepreneurs are there. In fact, there are lesser wealthy kids of wealthy families there. I think so entrepreneurship is more adopted by, in fact, the middle class folks, those who are very aspirational. They have the pulse of this growing India, and they are starting off and contributing to India's journey.
You were talking about some of the challenges. In fact, COVID, you mentioned, was one of the challenges. Could you talk to us about what kind of challenges you faced over the past 10, 12 years of your
So I think one of the biggest challenge was just to convince the rest of the ecosystem that furniture and appliances can be a considerable asset class as well. The second challenge was to ensure that the occupancy of these assets remains high for a longish period, because that's what drives the return on capital in the business. So for which we had to build a lot of infrastructure and tech infrastructure at the background. Just the inventory prediction algorithms over the years have become more and more sophisticated, right? So
do you own those warehouses, or they are rented?
These are leased out. Okay. These are leased out to us. But the kind of models that we use for the inventory prediction has matured over the years, and that has resulted into us proving that the occupancy remains 80-85% over a 10-year period. So I think that something was challenging enough, and that was something that we were able to prove to the market.
What about COVID?
COVID was, of course, COVID was a kind of blessing in disguise and also a challenging time frame. In COVID, a lot of consumers actually returned the products, because that's what we promised. That's the value addition as a proposition that we give it to them.
You can return it anytime.
You can return anytime. So there's no binding. We are a solution which doesn't bind you, which actually makes you nimble and free, with free repair maintenance, free relocation, and a non-liability product, right? So a lot of people return the product. So our churn went high, but at the same time, demand was also fairly high in an ecosystem which was very uncertain in nature, right? So a lot of people started shifting from purchase to rental as well. So net, our revenues kind of balanced each other, and we utilized that time period to not only, we turned profitable, we came out strong, much more stronger than COVID. A character was built, very high governance and transparency. I think we turned profitable in October 21 on a monthly basis. Next year we posted.
But then you were almost near a break-even point.
We had about 15 days of capital left, and within 7 months we were profitable.
Okay.
So that's the kind of a U-turn that company was able to see. And next year was almost like a 28 crores of EBITDA, jumped up to 66 crores of EBITDA, and last year was about this year would be about 100 crores of EBITDA. So that's the kind of a journey that happened, post-COVID.
Post-COVID.
Yeah.
Looking back, I mean, you said that you come from a modest background. Can I ask you, how does it feel to go back to your parents and tell them that, okay, I've created this? Was there that moment of pride that you could see in their eyes?
I think, yeah, definitely. I was the black sheep in the family. My brother has always, he graduated from IIT Bombay, and then London Business School, etc., all the right check boxes. For me to even go to my family and say that I want to start off was a very difficult thing. I didn't come from a business background altogether. So of course they were skeptical that, what is this guy doing? Will it eventually see the light of the day? And my previous startup, which I started post Flipkart, didn't work out.
Are you a buyer or a renter? I mean, do you rent stuff?
See, I'll always rent stuff. I don't think it makes sense to invest into assets that depreciate in its nature. It can be either car, it can be any of the asset, it can be even furniture and appliances to begin with. I think specifically when you are in the first 10 years of your working class life, whatever savings that you're having, it can't go into things of materialism. It has to go in things of minimalism. Rather, you should invest into maybe public markets or mutual funds or any any stream of asset that appreciates in its value, specifically in the first 10 years of your life. So I've been a biggest proponent of that. I wish somebody would have come back to a 21-year-old me and should have told me that, invest a massive
amount
savings in an index fund back then. It's been 15 years since. I think both of us will agree that if we all would have done that, it would have been massive. We would have been part of the growth story of India that we all are so bullish about. I rent furniture and appliances for my house. My car is on rent.
Rentomojo?
From Rentomojo, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your car's
my
rented
team
too?
will kill me if I take it from my competition, but car is also rental. Yes, of course.
You didn't have a car?
I didn't have a car till last 2 years back. I didn't have a car itself.
At home, is your wife also with the same philosophy?
Of course, wives always takes the biggest of the decisions within. So for me also, my wife has a big point of view on what kind of a dining table and sofa can come, and potentially if she's not able to find something on our platform or even competitions or any of the other rental platforms, is when she'll think of when both of us will think of purchase.
Talking about your startup journey again, will you ever want to go back to job?
Oh no, never. I'm never. I don't think so. I'll ever be able to do that. Now, thankfully, I don't have to. Because the business has reached a certain scale. We now employ close to about 2,000. They're close to about 2,000 people. That are associated with us. So I don't think I'll be cut out. If there's ever any Geetansh that comes for a job opportunity at Rentomojo, I don't think it'll make the cut.
Are you looking at IPO?
We're preparing for it. I think since the company has been growing phenomenally, upwards of 40% CAGR year on year, with a 25% return on capital employed year on year for the last several years now, been profitable. I think IPO, public markets, and such kind of investors will be able to appreciate a business like this for sure. So we understand that, but at the same time, we're just getting ourselves prepared. It's going to be a milestone for us.
Is there a timeline you're looking at?
We're not sure of the timeline, but I think we should be prepared this year, and when the right time comes, more from a market perspective, we would want to take that plunge.
And the right time would be when the markets probably just bounce back, or because is this the right time? I mean, we're looking at the tariffs and the way markets are reacting. Is this the right time?
See, I don't know where Mr. Trump's put is. So nobody knows. But having said that, I think we're not trying to time the market so much, because we're a more fundamental based company. We run it like already we are a listed entity. So we're not really trying to time the market. We are trying to time internally, trying to ensure that all the right processes and governance, everything is in place before we take the plunge. So I don't think it's more external, it's more intrinsic in nature. We should be there intrinsically, we should be prepared this year. But when do we hit the market, we're not too certain about it.
Okay. What are your hobbies like? What do you do other than when you're actually wearing the entrepreneurial hat?
And it's very important because, what do I do in my non-professional time is the most important to me these days. I think for the past 2.5 years, I've fallen in love with cave explorations.
Okay.
Okay. So, and I don't know, my neighbors keep sniffing and trying to understand why am I going to Vietnam so frequently. I think every 5-6 months, etc.
Right.
But there's some beautiful caves in Vietnam, in India as well, in Meghalaya as well.
Meghalaya. Your advice to somebody who wants to start up right now?
I think so I was at my lowest point when the capital in the company, when we had a 15 days of runway left, etc., etc. I'd in fact taken a personal loan on myself, of several $1 million. Let me just put it this way.
At that time?
At that point of time. So a lot of liability on my head, etc., etc. So when all of that was happening, I was becoming a victim altogether. I felt a victimizing attitude altogether, that why is this happening to me? Why the world is behaving like that? I'm trying to do everything right, correct, etc., etc. So sometimes you do all the right things, but life throws a challenge, and I think that's more so happens in entrepreneurship. That you'll start off thinking something within a year, 2-year time frame. You'll find that the variables itself has completely changed. So I think it's important to flip that mind state and react and do the best possible thing in that scenario is one of the most critical attributes of being very resilient and persistent. So I think that's one key takeaways. I always knew that, but when I experienced it, I understand the depth of it, and I think that's what I would say, that it's not a very hunky-dory, it's a very lonely journey. You do it for those, handful of moments that comes your way.
Wonderful. Geetansh, thank you very much for joining us. It was really lovely having you with us.
Thank you, Pranav. My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.